83% of working people on the planet are burned out. That's not a metaphor. That's a global study from this year. 83 out of 100. Look at the 5 people around you. 4 of them feel exactly what you feel. They just don't say it. But today, we're not going to talk about burnout. Everything that can be said about it has already been said, and then some. Mostly by people who've never burned out themselves, but have found a very comfortable way to monetize other people's pain. We're going to talk about the mechanism, about how the trap works, the one you ended up in even though you did everything right. Or, more precisely, because you did everything right. And by the end of this conversation, you'll see one thing, something so simple you'll wonder how you missed it. And once you see it, something will shift. Not dramatically, quietly, like that first breath after you've been underwater too long. There's something about our time that nobody seems willing to say out loud. A person does everything that's expected of them, and sometimes more. Builds a business, maintains a career, invests in themselves, keeps relationships alive, stays on top of their health, reads the right books, listens to the right people. On paper, everything checks out. But inside, silence. Not the kind that brings peace, the kind that rings. And here's the thing, if you look at it straight, the problem isn't the effort. There's usually more than enough effort. The problem is the framework itself, the map you've been navigating by. The map belongs to someone else. The territory is yours, and they don't match. That's where the feeling comes from, the one that's hard to describe but easy to recognize. You're lost in the middle of your own life. Everything seems to be in place, except you. Take a look at how this works from the inside. You wake up, and the first thing you do is check your balance, your messages, your feed. Not because you actually need something, but because not checking feels more unsettling than checking. Then, coffee, the commute, work. You get through your tasks, answer emails, keep the pace. In the evening, the gym or a show, not much difference between them because both are just ways to stop thinking. At night, a quiet anxiety you've learned to ignore. And tomorrow, it starts over. Those tracks, you didn't lay them, but you ride them every day, with this feeling that getting off is scarier than staying on, even when staying on is going nowhere. There are 2 ways of existing, and to see them, you don't need a therapist or a guru. You just need 30 seconds of honesty with yourself. The first is having, acquiring, accumulating, possessing. Things, status, experiences, connections. In this mode, a person equals what they own. Take it away, and there's nothing left to stand on. The second is being. Feeling, being present, acting because the action itself means something, not because there's a reward waiting on the other side. Civilization, quietly, elegantly, without any force at all, pushed us into having mode. And the person who lives there is condemned to a particular kind of hunger, one that no achievement can satisfy. You get something, flash of satisfaction, it fades. You need the next thing. Neuroscience confirmed this long ago. It's the same dopamine loop that drives gambling addiction. The casino is at least honest. It doesn't dress it up as a course on personal growth. The ironic part is that Fromm saw all of this long before smartphones existed, without brain scans or data, just by watching how people lived. And he described our era more accurately than any modern analyst with access to big data. The average human attention span today is 8.25 seconds. A goldfish gets 9. That's not a joke. That's the data. And the problem isn't that people have gotten dumber. The human brain evolved for an environment where new information appeared a few times a day. Now it appears a few times a second. Evolution operates on millions of years. Technology moves on decades. This isn't a competition. It's a beatdown. You haven't even gotten out of bed, and your hand is already on your phone. Not a choice, a reflex. And in 15 minutes of scrolling, you've processed more emotions, images, comparisons, and micro-decisions than your great-grandfather dealt with in an entire week. You haven't done a single thing yet, and your processor is already overheating. And the rest of the day just slides from there. And you'll keep wondering why you have so little energy, even though you feel like you haven't done anything. I call it theft. Someone stole the most valuable thing you have, and you didn't even notice. Because they didn't take your money, they took your attention. And attention is what your life is made of. Not time. Time passes whether you're there for it or not. Attention is what you put into every moment. Where you put it, that's where you lived. Put it in the feed, you lived in the feed. Put it in anxiety, you lived in anxiety. Put it in your kid tugging at your arm, trying to tell you something important, you lived in reality. The difference is catastrophic. But nobody shows you that. Showing you isn't profitable. What's profitable is keeping you on the screen. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his era, the emperor of Rome, wrote in his private journal, for himself, not for anyone else, the same thing over and over. Don't spend what's left of your life thinking about what other people think of you. That was the cry of a man who ran an empire and understood that even an emperor can't fully control where his attention goes. And now you have a device in your pocket, engineered by entire teams of people with one single goal: to take exactly what he was fighting to protect. So who actually decides where your attention goes? Simple question, uncomfortable answer. A principle that's been around for 500 years still works perfectly. Whoever controls what people see controls what people want. In the past, that was kings and the church. Then it was newspapers and TV. Now it's algorithms. The difference is that an algorithm has no ideology. It has one metric: time on screen. Whatever keeps you there is good. Whatever lets you leave is bad. And what keeps people glued better than anything? Anxiety, outrage, the feeling of not having enough, the fear of falling behind. Joy, peace, contentment, terrible content from a retention standpoint. A happy person closes the app. An anxious one keeps scrolling. Your anxiety isn't a side effect, it's the product, the main product of the attention economy. You're not the customer, you're the inventory, packaged as free access. And the control goes even deeper, through language. Look at what's happening right now. Rest is now called laziness. Common sense is a limiting belief. Paying for a course that changes nothing is investing in yourself. Being satisfied with what you have is a lack of ambition. When they swap out your dictionary, they swap out your entire coordinate system. Newspeak always feels natural. That's the whole trick. Someone once thought governments would do this. Turns out, marketing is better at it. And manipulation, broken down to its parts, is almost embarrassingly simple. Artificial scarcity, only 3 spots left. Social proof, 10,000 satisfied customers. Authority, A guy in a suit in front of a skyline who cycled through 5 businesses in 3 years, and not one survived past year 2. These mechanisms don't target logic. They target the brainstem, the part of your brain that reacts faster than it thinks. And by the time you're analyzing it, the decision is already made. Not by you, for you. There's a filter worth keeping with you for life. Skin in the game. The idea is uncomfortably simple. Don't listen to anyone who doesn't have something to lose from what they're preaching. Someone teaching you how to make money? How much have they made that didn't come from teaching others? They broadcast a lifestyle. Do they live it when the camera's off? They say, drop everything and start over. Have they ever actually done that? Or are they drawing a salary while monetizing your confusion? What does this person have on the line? What's the cost of their being wrong? If the cost is 0, you're not looking at a teacher. You're looking at a pitchman. And words without a price tag are just noise. A surgeon puts their reputation on the line with every operation. A pilot gets on the same plane. But the person telling you to invest in yourself for $900, what do they lose if you get nothing out of it? Exactly. Nothing. They already got theirs. There's one more idea that explains why we're so easy to knock off balance. Anti-fragility, the opposite of fragility. Not resilience, which just absorbs a hit, but the capacity to actually get stronger from it. A muscle that grows under load. An immune system that builds up from exposure. Most people today are fragile. Not weak, fragile. They've been systematically deprived of the right kind of stress, replaced with manufactured comfort. A meditation app instead of actual silence. A course on millionaire mindset instead of a first business that will inevitably fail and teach you more than 100 courses ever could. Looks intact from the outside, but shatters at the first real hit, like glass. And then the person sits in the wreckage and assumes the problem is them. But the problem is that you don't build walls out of glass. You make display cases out of glass. Something that looks beautiful until someone touches it. On discipline, one of the most elegant manipulations of our time, and I genuinely admire its architecture. You're told discipline is everything. Wake up at 5, meditate, journal, plan your week on Sunday, track your calories, optimize your sleep. And if you slip up after a month, the verdict is ready. Not enough willpower, not enough character. The problem is you. Notice the beauty of this construction. The person doesn't get results, and instead of questioning the direction, they question themselves. And they buy the next course, the next book, the next challenge. It's a perfect business model. A customer who always comes back because they always think they're the problem. The self-improvement industry, $46 billion a year, and growing. If the product worked, the customer wouldn't come back. But they do, again and again. The conclusion writes itself. Discipline is the how, a tool, a hammer. But no one gave you the why. They handed you someone else's purpose and then gave you the hammer. So you're hammering away at a screw, diligently, systematically, at 5 in the morning, and you genuinely can't figure out why nothing holds. Nietzsche said it better than anyone. The person who has a why can survive almost any how. But your why was taken from you, and in its place, you got a daily schedule in a pretty PDF. When the goal is truly yours, discipline changes its nature entirely. It stops being force and becomes rhythm. Water doesn't need discipline to flow. It needs a slope. There's a concept for this: Wu Wei, action through non-action. Not passivity, but movement in harmony with your own nature. A tree doesn't grow because you pull it upward. It grows because its roots are in the right place. But what you're being sold is the opposite: pressure on yourself, rebranded as personal growth. And you gratefully pay for the privilege of beating yourself up. So, why do you understand all of this and still act against yourself? You can see the feed is toxic, and you keep scrolling. You know the goal isn't yours, and you keep running toward it. Why? Because there's a mask. The one you put on for the world. You learned it as a kid. There's a version of you that people love. And then there's the real you, the one it's better not to show. Over time, the mask fuses to the skin. One version at work, another at home, a third online. The one that doesn't exist anywhere except on a screen, but demands just as much energy as the first two combined. And nobody warned you that maintaining 3 versions of yourself at once is a full-time job. Invisible, unpaid, and utterly exhausting. You come home. Your wife asks, "How was your day?" You say, "Fine." Because the real answer would mean dropping one mask, putting on another, all while not letting anyone see what's underneath both of them. You don't have the energy for that. So, fine. And the wall between you grows another millimeter thicker. Or you run into a friend. They ask how things are going, and you choose the truth or the version. Most people choose the version, because the truth requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is a risk. So you end up alone, in the company of someone you call close. The Surgeon General of the United States recently declared loneliness a health risk on par with smoking. Not because people are isolated, but because they've stopped being real with each other. The mask protects you from rejection, but it blocks connection. You're safe, and you're completely alone. At night, you go to bed feeling empty, and you don't know why. You didn't do anything hard today, but you spent the entire day holding multiple versions of yourself together. That drains you deeper than physical work ever could. The body recovers overnight. A psyche that doesn't know who it is doesn't recover until the mask finally comes off. And here's the paradox. As long as what's driving you from the inside stays invisible, it will keep driving you. And you'll call it fate, or bad timing, or just my luck. Or, the most common one, I need more discipline. The truth is the opposite. Less discipline, more honesty. But honesty doesn't sell for $99, so nobody's advertising it. People run from freedom, and this is both the funniest and the saddest thing about us. Because freedom means choosing without guarantees, without instructions, without someone to tell you what to do next. Look at the popularity of franchises, step-by-step blueprints. Do exactly what I did and get exactly what I got. These are products built for people who are running from the need to decide for themselves. Not from stupidity, from fear, from the emptiness they'd have to fill on their own. And to fill it means facing yourself, the real you, unfiltered and unscripted, the most terrifying meeting there is. There's a state most people live in every single day and don't even have a name for it: alienation. You work but feel no connection to what you're doing. You earn, but it doesn't feel like yours. You're living, but it doesn't feel like your life. You're on a video call with colleagues you've worked with for 3 years, and you don't know the first thing about how they actually live. You answer emails whose content you'll forget within the hour. You hit KP is whose meaning you can't explain without falling back on corporate jargon. Once, people could see the fruit of their labor: bread, a house, a pair of boots. Now, it's a row in a spreadsheet and a notification in Slack. This was described more than 150 years ago. Today, it's the default state for most people. Except most people don't recognize it as a problem. They just call it work, and they dread Sunday nights, because tomorrow it starts again.
How many decisions have you made in the past year that you can't even explain to yourself? How much time and energy went toward directions you chose not because you understood them, but because someone loud and confident said, "You need to"? How many subscriptions, courses, books, started and abandoned, left half-finished? There's a principle worth trusting. Don't invest in what you don't understand. The best investment is one you can explain to a 10-year-old. And this isn't just about money. It applies to time, attention, life. When the tide goes out, you see who's been swimming naked. The tide has been out for a while now. Look around. How many experts turned out to be hollow? How many strategies didn't survive their first contact with reality? How many mentors disappeared more quietly than they arrived? The equation that explains more than all the motivational literature combined looks like this: pain plus reflection equals progress. Not just pain. Without reflection, it becomes a trauma that repeats itself. Relationships that end the same way, with different people, in different cities, but always the same ending. Businesses that collapse at the same point, and every time it seems like just bad luck. Mistakes that travel with you through the years, unseen, because actually looking at them, really looking, is painful. Not just reflection. Without pain, it stays an interesting conversation with a smart book, after which nothing actually changes. But together, transformation. Quiet, invisible from the outside, irreversible. But you were taught otherwise. Pain is bad. Avoid it. Optimize around it. Mental health app, 10-step guide, a video called How to Stop Being Anxious in 5 Minutes. So you avoid, and you become that glass, looking perfectly intact right up until someone touches it. One of the most powerful ideas any human being has ever put into words was articulated by a slave. His leg was broken. He had nothing. No freedom, no money, no rights. And he left behind a formula that no science in 2,000 years has managed to disprove. We are not disturbed by things, but by our judgments about them. A slave with nothing, freer than someone with a smartphone who can't go 10 minutes without checking their notifications. His name was Epictetus, and he knew one thing: the only thing I control is where I choose to direct my attention. In financial markets, this is called reflexivity. Perception doesn't reflect reality, it shapes it. See scarcity. Make decisions from a place of scarcity. Get scarcity. See abundance. Act differently. Get something different. In business, whoever sees a crisis as an ending cuts costs and hides. Whoever sees it as a reshuffling finds what others missed while they were busy panicking. In relationships, whoever looks through suspicion provokes the very thing they fear. Whoever looks through trust creates a space where trust can actually grow. Same partner, same job, same economy, 2 different perspectives, 2 completely different lives. And the key question? Who exactly is shaping the lens you're looking through right now? Most of what exhausts you will never actually happen. 90%. These are scenarios, projections, catastrophes you rehearse in your head, while real life passes by, unnoticed, without you. Seneca said it 2,000 years ago. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Nothing has changed since then. Except now the imagination has a Wi-Fi connection and refreshes every second. Look at your life the way a general looks at a map. How many battles are you fighting that aren't yours? An argument in the comments with someone you'll never meet? Competing with someone whose real life you know nothing about? Anxiety over an economy you have zero control over? Worrying about what people think of you? People who aren't thinking about you at all. The highest strategy is winning without fighting. Not entering other people's battles. Not burning your energy on things that aren't yours. Not waging war on foreign territory for someone else's interests. Chasing wealth for the recognition of others is a sickness that success can't cure. Ironically, that wasn't said by a monk or an ascetic. It was said by Adam Smith, the man who built the intellectual foundation of the free market. He warned immediately, it can devour you. But for some reason, that part never gets quoted. Neither does this part. Value is subjective. What the market prices doesn't necessarily have any value to you. Nobody knows what you need better than you do. No expert, no algorithm. That's not a motivational quote. It's an economic law. The pause. Not a pretty word, an action. The people who have built and lost more than you and I will ever see in our lifetimes all say the same thing. The most important decisions come in silence. Not in meetings, not during productive time, but when you finally stop. And every failure is data, not a verdict. Though the success industry is built on exactly the opposite premise. If it didn't work, something must be wrong with you. A convenient setup for those selling the solution. There's a simple test that nobody offers because there's no money in it. Try to remember the last time you genuinely felt good. Not successful, not impressive, not enviable, just good, quiet, full. Odds are it was a simple moment, a dinner where nobody was in a rush, a conversation that stretched until morning, not about business, but about something you don't even have a name for. A walk where, for the first time in months, you actually noticed the sky. A silence between two people that felt full instead of uncomfortable. A phone face down on the table that didn't buzz. Those moments aren't details. They're the foundation. Business, career, status, numbers in an account. Those are the structure built on top. When the structure falls, and it always does, that's just how things work, the only thing that holds is what's underneath. Whoever knows they have enough is rich. All you need for happiness is bread, water, and a friend. That wasn't said by the poor, it was said by the wise. They believed that suffering begins not from scarcity, but from false ideas about what we need. And false ideas today? That's a billion-dollar industry. When a philosopher who lived in a barrel was approached by a conqueror who'd subdued half the known world, and the conqueror asked what he could do for him, the philosopher said, "Get out of my sunlight." Diogenes and Alexander the Great. One had nothing and knew exactly what he needed. The other had everything and had no idea. Look, a slave who understood the value of attention. An emperor who reminded himself not to waste it on other people's noise. A philosopher who knew what enough meant. A psychoanalyst who saw the trap. A trader who discovered that perception shapes reality. A strategist who taught us not to enter other people's wars. A mathematician who warned, "Don't trust anyone with nothing to lose." Different people, different eras, one point. The return to yourself. Not to a better version, not to an optimized you. To the person who's there when the screens go dark, the masks come off, and other people's voices finally go quiet. Different maps. Individuation, stoicism, anti-fragility, moving from having to being. One territory. And that territory is you. I won't tell you everything is going to be okay. I don't know. Nobody does. Anyone who says otherwise is either wrong or selling something. But one thing I can see clearly. What's happening to you isn't a malfunction. It's a perfectly normal response from a working system to absurd inputs. A computer running contradictory instructions isn't broken. It's in conflict. A person exhausted from chasing other people's goals isn't weak. They're just headed in the wrong direction. And those are fundamentally different diagnoses. What you need right now isn't a new plan, not a new system, not another hit of motivation. Just a pause. Let go of other people's answers to make room for your own. Nature runs on cycles. Winter doesn't become spring because you want it badly enough. It becomes spring because it completes the cycle. No wind is favorable to a sailor who doesn't know where he's going, and you won't find your port in the noise. Not in the next course, not in someone else's instructions. You can only hear it in the silence. Stop, and you'll hear it. 1 hour without your phone, without music, without a podcast, just a walk, just quiet, sometimes does more than a year of therapy. Not because it's magic, but because in the silence, you can finally hear the signal that all the noise has been drowning out. What you hear might be quiet, simple, the kind of thing that won't fit in any post, but it will be yours. The only thing that's truly yours, and the only thing you can actually build something lasting on. Because what's real isn't built on motivation, not on discipline, not on someone else's formula. What's real is built in the silence where you finally heard yourself. If something here landed, leave one word, not a polished one, an honest one. Whatever's on the inside right now. We're not here for beautiful phrasing. We're here for precision. Subscribe if you want to keep going. This is where we break down the mechanisms. No slogans, no empty promises, just how things actually work and how to live with that. And yes, behind the mask, there's someone. He's waiting. He's always been waiting.